Our first panelist for today is Ms. Shweta Tiwari. She's a program lead at Plug and Play India. Then we have Dr. Shibu. He's the chief AI scientist at Aquarians AI. Then we have Mr. Jeremy. He's the CEO of Venture Studio at Ahmedabad University. Then we have Mr. Mohit Jain. He's a principal researcher at Microsoft Research India. Then we have Ms. Geeta Kanwar. She's the head of policy and government engagement at Karya AI. Then we have Mr. Varun Sakhuja. He's the director at MasterCard India, the government engagement director. Then we have Mr. Mayuresh Ramachandra. He's the founding partner, Salmander Advisors. And last but not the least, we have Mr. Praveen Das. He's the lead partnerships manager at Wikimedia Foundation. We'll wait for the photo and then we'll start with the session. So before we start with the session, I want to brief the audience that this session will be divided into two parts. The first will be the panel discussion, and the second part will be the open discussion. We have a couple of experts for the open discussion as well. We have Ms. Aditi Sitha. She's a principal consultant at Dutient. We have Ms. Sonia Bhaskar, who's she's a public policy consultant and trainer. And we have Ms. Tripathi Bansal, who's the founder and CEO of Policy Index. Over to you, Kamesh. I think we can begin with the panel discussion.
Thank you so much, everyone. I think like we are all navigating the chaos, but thanks for making it here. And thanks for all the speakers. I know it was really crazy to get in here, and thank you for making on time. And I can see full house. That's amazing. Lots to catch up and lots to discuss, and we have very less time that Meti has given us. So let's just deep dive into this. Just giving a very short genesis of where this conversation is starting from. So we at the Core AI is a multi-stakeholder coalition on artificial intelligence. It's one of the largest and India-based coalition on AI, which has different ecosystem players within the artificial intelligence working towards how to make AI innovations responsible. I had collaborated with Plug and Play and Gift City. And we had come up this idea that hey, why can't we do something at the APAC level? Because some of the issues that we kind of talk about are Asia specific or Asia Pacific specific, and how can we actually put together a center which brings the ecosystem from the APAC to work towards some of the common goals and common intentions. So that was the idea, and then we thought a Impact Summit has come through. And then why not we have, the globe is here, and we thought we'll bring everybody together to discuss in terms of what it could really look like. We have some experts here, and we have some experts here as well, who will be waving in as we move forward. So I'll start with, first of all, with my co-organizer here, Shweta. Shweta, I'm Plug and Play works across the globe, and especially a little predominance at APAC level. So can you start with talking about what are the biggest opportunities at the AI ecosystem that you really envisage for next 2 to 3 years, and how can the ecosystem come together, and what are the roadblocks you see in that coming together to happen?
Yeah. Thank you, Kamesh. First of all, welcome to all the audience here and my co-panelist. Very glad and very happy to be here today to hear from the audience. Actually, eventually we also want to hear from you guys as to what do you want to see in AI. But from our experience as Plug and Play, what we are currently looking at, or where we see the opportunities as well. And this takes me back about 10 years where the fintech ecosystem started, right? The fintech ecosystem started back in 2014, 2015, and many of my co-panel members here will echo the same. People were scared. People were like, oh my God, what will happen? The banks will vanish. But nothing vanished, right? All that happened was the way people bank became different. The same thing is going to happen with AI, which is the way we do things today will just be much more efficient. we don't have to worry about losing jobs. We have to, in fact, be happy that we will be much more efficient. In fact, even today, what I can do in my 8 hours of the day is much more than what I used to do earlier. And that's where we are seeing a lot of startups also today, where startups are not just creating a new technology, but they are creating how an existing framework in an organization can be done better. And that's where we see a lot of opportunities of creating those AI centers. In fact, we are currently speaking to a couple of them on how can we bring these AI talent together, and how can we create those centers and help organizations. So as Plug and Play today, we run about 600 plus programs globally, right? How can we help these corporates do their work much more efficiently and in a better way?
That's very well put, and like I think that captures the essence and the objective of what we are trying to build through this center. So now I want to before I move on to the next question, like I think the other panelist is sitting here, Mr. Mayuresh. I think please you can take the seat. I can stand. So I want to now move to Dr. Shivaramakrishnan, who's here, who's the startup here. So, sir, we kind of dialogue and Plug and Play put out our objectives in terms of what we are trying to achieve from the APAC Center. I put the same question to you in terms of as a startup, what do you think is the biggest opportunities that we actually have at the APAC level, and how can the ecosystem come together and work towards getting there? So if you could bring in your thoughts there. Yeah.
See, and I can speak for APAC region as well as my startup is based out of Dubai, so in Middle East, and I do a lot of work in Middle East and Riyadh and all these places. So I can cover some of these areas also. From a startup perspective or startup ecosystem perspective, we see a lot of opportunities now wherever we are going there in a conversation. We see a lot of conversation happening around applied AI and sectoral approach to AI, whether it is agentic AI or agentic AI. No one wants to talk to you about technology anymore. Like if you say that, okay, I am working on Gen AI, I'm an agentic AI framework, I have done that. When we used to, when our narrative was about technology, like this is AI agentic framework, we are the first company who have integrated knowledge management, and we have integrated digital twins and all that, and we have vectorized databases and all that. Okay, but then tell me, what is the problem you're trying to solve here? What is the business impact you're going to we are trying to create here, right? That is being the prominent question across all these areas. So applied AI at all sectoral level, we are seeing a lot of traction happening, especially in BFSI, healthcare, and government public services. We see a lot of, because APAC is one region where we have a lot of diversity, and there is a lot of need from a government perspective to operationalize some of these complex workflow systems using agentic AI, right? So I think that's where I think the most of the the opportunity lies with, be it a startup, you are a seed, or you are a scaling up. That's where I think is where the most of the opportunities are lying. And if you look at it from a challenges perspective, what are the challenges the startups would face here is, one is access to capital, right? We have very rarely seen a deep tech company at a seed level going and asking, because given whatever has happened in the last 6 months or 8 months across the region, there is a wait and watch philosophy there across the VCs, like if you have seen, right? So that's where I think the governments have to step in, the company, the big corporates have to step in, and where there's a kind of a matchmaking should happen between the startups and what the use cases and all the stuff, right? So to summarize, if deep tech along with domain expertise is going to be the the key feature, like if you want to succeed in this region, in my opinion.
That's excellently put, sir. I mean, like, you know, you kind of like brought that essence of use cases and like how they are similar when it comes to like different, similarities in issues, and how these use cases can be scaled, and how that kind of a partnerships has to work out between the startups and corporates. That actually segues well to my next question, which I have for Mr. Jeremy here. Jeremy, I wanted to pick your brain in terms of, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right.
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah, thank
Jeremy.
you so much. So, we just saw that, our two panelists that spoke about like strengthening collaboration. And the collaboration that we are actually talking about is cross-border in nature. So when that cross-border overlay comes over these partnerships, how can that, what are the nitty-gritties that we should be like taking care when it comes to like market access support, or like, and what could be the trusted pathway towards this? Any insights?
Yeah, thank you so much, Kamesh, and thanks Core AI, Dialogue, and Plug and Play for organizing this. There's so many opportunities. So I'm based at Ahmedabad University. The venture studio there is a technology business incubator under the Department of Science and Technology in India. And so we support startups across the venture readiness spectrum and through government funding programs. In terms of collaboration pathways, I think it's really important to establish soft landing programs across the APAC region. And I think it's really important that these soft landing programs are established with reciprocal pathways. Far too long, I think, in India, India's given a lot more than it's received from its overseas partners. So I think when establishing these new partnerships, and hopefully with the help of the new Center for AI, we can ensure that the frameworks for the soft landings are all reciprocal. So what does that mean? That means ease of funding. So we index all of the funds throughout our partner organizations. We make sure that we understand what their funds focus is, what size checks they write, and then disseminate all of the their fundraising efforts across our portfolios to ensure that we can get startups funded faster, because the faster we fund the startups, the less likely they are to fail. And then I think it's really important, it's hard to ignore, I'm originally from the US, and I feel like, the US is going in the wrong direction in terms of collaborative pathways. I hope that things change over the next couple of years. But, it's really important that, the tariff and trade agreements are improved, and we can see those efforts materializing just in the last couple months with the EU and India, with the UK and India. And so I think easier exim policies will accelerate the SMEs as well.
That's thanks for bringing that perspective, Jeremy, in terms of like giving like how the layers of those partnerships like look like. But I also wanted to like quickly pick your brain in terms of like, because like you're the only academic, in the panel, like, where do you really position academics within this partnership?
Yeah, so that's also a really important vertical within, whether it's the soft landings or it's like opportunity assessments. So the government has a few different platforms for opportunities. There's one called Manthan, which was started by Dr. Sapna Poti, who now serves in the office of the Principal Scientific Advisor to the Government of India. Manthan indexes a lot of private and public opportunities for pilots. So pilot opportunities are great ways also to present commercialization pathways to researchers. I think it's also important to have those discussions from a leadership perspective within a higher education institution about the pathways that are provided to researchers, the efforts that they're putting in. A lot of times are for publishing papers or filing IP. But I think that maybe we should add metrics to the rankings where we see, okay, commercialization, how many companies are started by researchers, or how many licenses, for the technologies are going out. some of which are included in those rankings. So I think the key opportunity here from the academic perspective is one, the researchers, and then also introducing entrepreneurship from a young age. Startup India in the last 10 years, the big stat we always like to hear is, we started with 500 startups registered in 2015, 2016, and now we have over 2 lakh startups registered through DPIIT and on track to be #1 in the globe for startups in the next 3 years. I think that we can include entrepreneurship in earlier education, and it's important there, though, to focus how we guide these early entrepreneurs. So understanding the critical areas of need for the country, like healthcare, workforce development for how AI is disrupting the workforce, whether that's emphasis on pathways to agriculture or in Indian knowledge systems with a focus back on crafts and other areas of that IKS stream.
Great. You want to come in?
By the way, I wear multiple hats. I'm also a professor of practice at Amrita Puri.
Oh, okay.
And, I'm also a senior research fellow with 3 more universities.
Oh, lovely.
2 in Dubai, 1 in India.
Oh, lovely.
I thought I'll add something to what Jeremy is saying. There is a trend now, in fact, a couple of IITs also started doing it. They are setting up translational labs, which sits in between academic research and market spaces, right? So like from T2, T3, T1 to T3 was taken care by the academic research. How you are taking it to T7, T8, T9, those are the activities. Normally a translational lab would look at it. Some of our organizations, IITs, are already started building that, including Amrita Puri and so forth. So that's a very good trend.
That's a very interesting, use case. Yeah.
And it's also getting into the MBOs of the professors now, not only like how many papers presented or published, now they are getting into like how many patents filed which are actually taken into licensing mode and production
The
mode.
translation from research to the implementation.
Academic research to
Yeah,
market
yeah,
facing.
yeah. Great. So, Jeremy, on interest of time, I will come back to you if you have your thoughts, because I have few more panelists and few experts waiting to weigh in as well. So now spoke about academic partnerships and startup perspective. I wanted to go to Varun to talk a little bit in terms of the and also Varun, this is from the APAC level is what we are looking into, is where do you see that partnerships between corporate and public sector is lying at this point of time, especially when we are talking at the cross-border level, and how can we actually strengthen it, and what are the roadblocks that has to be broken?
Thank you very much. Firstly, thank you to India AI Summit for inviting us, and of course Core AI and Plug and Play for hosting this session. It's an interesting perspective when you ask that how do you see an APAC Centre, right? APAC has always been at the core of innovation, and it's no different when it comes to AI.
Correct.
What's different is to realize the fact that it is not fragmented into a specific, let's say, a region. There is, let's say, research happening in Southeast Asia. There is research happening in South Asia. There is an amalgamation of, let's say, models coming together here within India, and India is, of course, at the forefront of trying to create more and more outcomes out of it. I'll give you an analogy in MasterCard parlance, right? How we look at innovation and how in the past over 210 countries we've done a similar platform. So we have a platform called as StartPath. And what it does is it gets learnings and corporates and partners together across the globe, and we select 200 partners globally, very few from every region, but the idea is they get to do structured pilot. So it goes beyond just getting the ideas together, and it's easy to put a center or an idea on paper, but to actually execute, you need partners on ground. True. So what we believe is that there is a high scope for a public-private partnership. What I mean by that is startups today, when it comes to AI, and we're talking about APAC Centre, they need access to different technologies, they need access to models, they need access to best practices. Corporates, on the other hand, they do need implementation partners in the form of startups, so there is a win-win for both of them. Governments, on the other hand, also need a direction. So what a center like this can do, in my view, is it can bring all of this together. We try to do the same with a MasterCard AI Garage. That our global AI Garage is set up out of India. We do research symposiums. We do pilots for regulators. We do pilots for the government. We do, of course, for our own customers, which includes our issuers, our merchant partners, everyone put together. But the essence, in my view, remains that somebody has to put the structure together and get the partners in place.
Exactly.
It's such a problem, and I think common shared views, Jeremy, you were talking about the Manthan program. We've collaborated with the government in various such programs, including Manthan for that matter, including with CII on a platform called as Digital Saksham, because we feel that when entities like ours come together, we can solve not just from a platform or a capability point of view, but very importantly from an awareness point of view. So we create structures to say that what is it that's needed. So for instance, when it comes to safety and security of transactions, you'll be surprised that when even today we hosted cyber awareness workshops, people still ask us the very basics, which most of us in the room believe that it's BAU. We shouldn't share passwords. We should be very careful about our OTPs, etc. But when we host these cyber awareness workshops in tier 2, tier 3 cities, it's very different. So when you're talking about APAC as a region and Southeast Asian countries or South Asia as a region and all the developed Asian countries put together, there is still a lot of scope for awareness as well. So a mixed bunch of things, and I feel that it's a right direction to have different entities from startups, academia, and other partners, and startup partners such as Plug and Play, all put together to run this.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Varun. I think you very well put the two important aspects of doing something like this is that how can we bring like-minded people together, which is what we do with Core AI in India, but we are trying to expand this scope and see at the APAC level, and also making those partnerships happen. And awareness is a very important aspect because there is so much innovations happening, and that visibility is important to merge two things to take it forward from there. So thanks for bringing that perspective. Just shifting the gear a little bit, moving towards little bit of the technical side of the things. So when we talk about anything at the cross-border level, one of the important aspects comes as your technical angles and interoperability and all of those aspects. So this is where I wanted to bring Mohit, this perspective in terms of at the technical level, how can a center like this could help bringing that kind of an interoperability? Any perspectives that you could like to bring, and beyond that as well?
So I'm Mohit. I work at Microsoft Research Lab in India, and I'm a researcher, so it's hard for me to say a lot about policy. I'll give that disclaimer up front. And I mainly work in healthcare, which is very well-regulated field. Okay, and I think what I've realized is that I think there are certain things which maybe a center like this, or maybe can help, is that I think there is a lot of distrust from any of these organizations which have some critical data, be it a hospital which have patient data, or be it like a financial firm or a legal firm. And there I think there has to be some policy or some ways to actually use that data, because that will in a way help the ecosystem. Okay, I think so that's very crucial. I'll keep it short.
I think that's the nail at the coffin, right? Data sharing when it comes to cross-border is still a question which is has to be looked into. Shweta, you want to weigh in, is it?
Yeah, just to add to this, I think something that's very interestingly working for us at GiftCity, which may work at the APAC level as well. At GiftCity, because we are an offshore, all the solutions that we have are for offshore. There's something very interesting there is an interoperable sandbox that we have, which is getting data from ARDI, getting data from RBI, from SEBI, from IFSCA, which is the regulatory authority in GiftCity. Now that helps a startup. If a startup is sitting in India or any other country within Southeast Asia, if 3-4 IFSCs come together and put an interoperable sandbox together, that will help startups build solutions which can be acceptable in each of the geography versus building for each of the geography individually.
I think finding the commonalities and building those sandboxes so that they have that market access easy is a great point. And I think this segues to the next question I had for Geeta. So data sharing, one way you can look at from the angle of innovation. Another way, the major one is that is like it comes to is the governance and as well as like your policy level stuff. So Geeta, just wanted to pick your brain in terms of what are the key governance and policy issues that needs more ecosystem coordination. And how can a center like this build that ecosystem towards going about it. So just asking you in terms of what are those few pointers that the center should look into as we move forward.
I think, thank you for the question, Kamesh, and thank you for having me here. Just to give an introduction about Karya. Karya is building foundational language data sets, and we work with communities in doing so. So far, we have worked on 70 plus Indian languages, and we work with more than 150,000 people. So coming back to the question, Kamesh, I think some of the key governance questions, a lot has already been talked about. I'll pick up two which we are currently working on and which I believe is something that needs to be taken care of. One is that we have to ensure that the data is quality data and representative. Something that the center can definitely look at is the fact that the data sets that's currently existing, it's not very representative of the APAC's linguistic and cultural diversity that exists, right? I don't know how many of you in the room has seen the movie called Humans in the Loop. It is on Netflix, and it actually virtually depicts what kind of cultural context is currently missing in the data sets that we have. And because embedding data sets is the first point of entry where the bias starts embedding in the system, it's very important that we look at it and we work on ensuring that these policies are part of the governance framework. The second is evaluation. We are working on evaluation. Currently, we do not have a lot of consensus on how our systems should be evaluated. The current benchmarks and the safety matrix that we have are Eurocentric. They are again not rooted in the cultural context that we operate in, some of the socio-economic realities that is existing in the APAC region. So it's very important that the center also looks into building frameworks around evaluation, which can also serve as global benchmarks for that matter. And these benchmarks should actually test on the cultural relevance. They should look at if we have low resources, then how is the model performing in those low resource settings? And it should also look at what kind of biases, which are very specific to the APAC region, how are we contextualizing them in the evaluation frameworks. So I think these are the two things that we should look at and the center should definitely explore.
Definitely, I think there's a lot of scope when it comes to at the APAC level, bringing the contextuality towards evaluation. I think evaluation is something that is still in the nascent stage, but there's a lot of work that has to be done there. So thanks, Geeta, for actually bringing that perspective. You wanted to add, sir?
I just want to add something here. First of all, forget about globally we are converging on what should be a common governance framework or data sovereignty framework. I think it is possible to converge on region-specific governance framework, right? That's where it's possible, right? We call it a decentralized, centralized approach when it comes to, we can still have 60% of the governance framework common across the region with local variations, right? And it starts with, first of all, we had a discussion about a week back in Europe. We need to understand and agree upon when we say high-risk AI use cases. We all need to be in sync, first of all, what are those high-risk use cases which are common across the region, at least the region.
I get it.
I think it starts with that.
I get it. Yeah, I think that's one of the recommendations in our AI governance report also is find risk, having evidence to risk is something that we have to build on. So thanks for bringing that perspective, and I think evidence to risk has to be global. That's something that's interesting. So quickly, coming to Praveen here, thanks, and my last but not the least, I'll come to you. So because I think investors' perspective is the most epitome, so we'll come to that in the last. But Praveen, picking your brain on infrastructure. So this is another angle that we have to look into when we talk about partnerships and some cross-border level. So what shared infrastructure or enablers could really that we can do in terms of accelerating innovation across the region. So any perspective on that particular aspect? Yeah. So basically the question is around the shared infrastructure and also putting an overlay of cross-border to it.
Yeah. I would say, want to start with this, that I think this is a great opportunity that we are having this discussion to shape up the global, set up a global standard for responsible AI. And specifically on, the question, I believe the data sets which generally trains AI models are very, very important here. Coming from Wikimedia Foundation, Wikipedia has been a platform which has more than 300 plus languages. And I would say, it's one of the important model which even AI companies use for data set training. It's completely based on open governance. It's based on trust and transparency. You can see historical changes within it, and hence, it's easy to refer back and see the sources of the information as well. So I believe, moreover, walking towards multilingual internet is something which we should aim at, and probably providing solution to the billions of users who are not speaking English, who are waiting to consume the information in the native language, should be kept in the center and in the mind while having these discussion around share structure. But also just wanted to add up one component of creating data sets which is easy to access, which is based on open source model, which will be helpful for cross-border partnerships to collaborate and use the data sets whenever it is required.
That's a great point. I think open source data sets is something is also something that we are in India also speaking about moving towards sovereignty and also having some open source so that it can be worked upon. I think India AI is also working on AI Kosh, which is kind of your open source aspect, shared data models.
I think for any model to train, I think the structured data is very important. So projects like Wikidata, and Wikipedia, which is digital public good. It has been recognized as a digital public good. It serves as an example of the projects and the data sets which can be adapted and used.
Thanks, Praveen. Now I'm coming to Mayuresh. Just wanted to understand what are the investment and funding gaps that are holding such cross-border ventures and to grow, and what role can the center play? I think one important role which Varun kind of pointed out is bringing people together. So beyond that, what role can center play when it comes to bridging these gaps?
Sure. Yeah. So first of all, thanks for having me. My name is Mayuresh Raut. I run a deep tech focused fund called C Fund. We've been making investments for almost the 15th year running. We work with all national initiatives, the AI mission, the quantum mission, the DLI initiative in space. We've been working with several state governments, Karnataka, Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh, Odisha, list goes on and on. I hope to bring some perspective on what's happening at the policy level, the regulation level, and what's happening on the investment side of things. First of all, the role that you guys can play is, there was a study that came out recently that showed which society or which countries are how well or not well disposed towards AI. The US and the Anglo-Saxon world, there's a huge fear about it. The eastern side of things, Japan, China, they probably view AI very positively, and we are somewhere in the middle. You can't be dealing with the technology or running away from it. You have to embrace it. This is a different beast. It's not going to be the same like we've had other tech epochs. But at the same time, I mean, you just have to look at what happened for all of us to come in, right? There are three pillars on which economies progress. There's labor, there's capital, and there's productivity. Till the US had this recent burst of productivity, there was a stasis in productivity. And all you have to do is look at India as to how better can our gig workers do their jobs, how better can each one of us do our jobs. You got to throw in some tech for us to get in quickly. I mean, the amount of sheer wastage that we have in our life. Productivity gains are something that we need to focus on if we need to look at those 16, 20, 25 trillion numbers that our Prime Minister and all of us have aspirational towards the 2047 that we have as a milestone. Again, if I look at it from the investment point of view, we can't play the US game. We don't have the capital, either domestic or expect 90% of the capital to come from the US. We can't play the Chinese game, but we got to have a mix of that. The Chinese have open source models. In fact, my belief is at some point they want to go out and hit the US exactly in the sort of pack of cards that they have, all these incestuous deals, OpenAI dealing with Microsoft, dealing with NVIDIA, what have you. They're all closed wall systems. India's got to be somewhere in the middle. The fact that we had our sovereign LLMs, the AI mission has devoted some resources towards that. It's a good beginning, but I think SLMs are the way to go. Our language vernac problems that we have are the way to go, and we are a voice-led country. And these are areas that can easily be adopted to the Southeast Asian region or the Global South, as our PM calls. And there's a reason why the Global South is being spoken about at length, right? I mean, if you look across spectrums, right from defense, right from fintech, our global, our digital public goods, there's no reason why that cannot be adopted quickly, and an AI layer is thrown around that. Singapore is already talking about having adoption on it. Indonesia is talking about it. There's no reason why the rest of Southeast Asia can't adopt that. The one thing I think Jeremy alluded to this, all the structures that have been built, whether trade-wise, whether security-wise, are collapsing. One commodity which, when broken, cannot be brought about overnight is trust. There is a huge deficit in trust, and if that is not addressed and somebody steps in, it's not going to work well. The last 50 years, whatever we have gone out and put together in terms of systems and structures, it's being dismantled. So somebody has to step in and put in a new regime, and that is where I think the responsible AI, the trust element that the Indian government is talking about, is absolutely crucial. If you look at investments, step back, the SaaS playbook is dead in my view, in our view. Hitting a 1 million ARR within 2-3 years was a monumental achievement. And you have crazy situations where, and this is on the consumer side, not on the enterprise side, you have guys hitting 100 million in 6 months, 7 months, 8 months. The best I've seen in the Indian side of things is somebody hitting a $500,000 ARR in 45 days. That does not translate anywhere close to the 100 million 6 months. So how do we play this game? We have to use the limited amount of capital that we have very judiciously. We have enormous problems that only require an Indian lens and that need our lived experience. You can't have a founder sitting in the US, you can't have a founder sitting in China. China is out of the equation, but anywhere in the Far East, come back and start, hit the ground running. What can the government do better? I think the government gets a raw deal, most governments do, but in the longest time, all you have to do is hark back to how things were 5 years, 7 years back. I can tell you personal experience, 2018 when we went to our investors and said we want to do something in the deep tech side of things, we were laughed out of the room. Similar investors, they're not laughing away or they're not dancing when we say we want to make investments in space, quantum, defense, but at least they're not blinking. What has changed is, I hope all of you are keeping track of what's happening on the ANRF side of things, the RDF side of things. There is going to be a flood of money that is going to come into the Indian ecosystem. Now, like with most such things, a lot of this will probably be wasted, but the hope is there will be some platforms, some startups, and some initiatives that will get built out and that will stay here for the future. There's a whole bunch of us here who've gone out to the US and are beneficiaries of what DARPA has done, what NSF has done, what we've done when we did our undergrad or postgrad. We were lacking for that. We were literally, guys like you, guys like us, we were banging down all doors that we need to have a replicative initiative like this. 5 years beyond when I spoke to you about when we were talking about having deep tech investments, we see enormous, again, it's not the US level, but we see a lot of founders who have raised a few lakhs to a few crores. In this given situation, if you've not gone out and raised some money through grants or equity-led grants, you're doing a criminal disservice to yourself and you're in the wrong game. So if you ask me, there is enough money in the ecosystem, the right set of people are involved in the right set of decision-making aspects. We are still a developing country, our per capita income is nowhere next to what China is, but despite that, we have a $12.5 billion scheme that goes after basic research, translation research and cutting-edge products. What the government can do more is obviously, the one thing that we as a society have is we are very transactional in nature. Collaborativeness is missing. So when I have a conversation with any one of these, I'll start from myself rather than shoot at somebody else. I or most folks like me are bothered about what do I get out of this conversation. It's too big a opportunity in front of us for any one of us to do this alone. And this is a problem that bedevils all our institutes of national prominence, the IITs, the IIMs, all of them have 4 or 5 arms. One guy doesn't know what the other guy is doing, and there is sheer criminal wastage. If policy advocates like you can help us address these issues, I think we're on the cusp of what young founders like you that are present in the room can help us achieve, which my generation, which grew up in a constrained environment, we had one channel, we had a landline, and I didn't know what was happening in the US. We had to cut cassette tapes that came to us after 2 years. I'll stop there.
Thank you so much, Mayuresh. I think like an excellent point is the trust. Building trust is very important aspect, and
I'll just take a quick, I know we are short on time, just quick 2 minutes on trust since we spoke of it. You know, in the last 18 years that I've been in payments, none of us wake up in the morning deciding what payment instrument we have to use. There is an inherent trust that has been built up depending on our lifestyle, depending on if you're trying to book a cab, what is more convenient, whether it's account-to-account payments or if you're trying to go to transit, tapping and trying to go. So the idea is that can we make within the APAC Centre of AI cross-border trust also interoperable. Correct. And there have been certain discussions, and I think, Mayuresh, I think you spoke of the Singapore corridor of, the account-to-account payments that the government is trying to set export DPI there. There is an opportunity for the center or the players to come together to solve for safety and security, even in cross-border trust. Correct. So for instance, using a federated learning model, something that we have solved for. So there is a need to think about trust also and have a cross-border interoperable trust framework. Correct. Because that's the bedrock of anything. In payments, the reason why we are there in 200 plus countries is because there is a trust that if the transaction happens at a merchant, the merchant will get the payment no matter who the consumer is. Correct. On the other hand, right? Yeah. Likewise, when it comes to AI technologies, we need to develop that trust framework.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and I think like your sandbox is also somewhere like touching the same aspect around like how can we build this common trust platform. So we have 10 minutes, and I have like 3 experts from the audience side like I want to like cover, and then if there's time I will come back for the closing remarks. I would love to pick everybody's brain here on the stage. So the question, it's a common question that we have for all the experts who are here, and starting with Ms. Sonia Bhaskar. Yeah, so somebody, if we can give the mic to her. Ma'am, the question is and thank you first of all for making it. And Sonia Bhaskar is a public information integrity consultant and a trainer. So, ma'am, the question is how can the APAC Centre, support responsible scaling of AI? So, any inputs that you would like to contribute towards what this center should look like?
Thank you, and a very enriching discussion. I'm familiar with work of some of the panelists already. So yes, a responsible and ethical AI framework should be, I think, the centerpiece, because we've been talking about trust, but also inclusivity is going to be a very huge factor.
Yeah.
Any startup ecosystem will not thrive if we don't look at it from the community perspective. How are we capturing our data? Already in the existing world, we have biases. We don't have data on, say, enough data on women in healthcare, etc. So can AI and the current ecosystem help bridge that divide? And I recently was in a session where they said that if you don't have digitized records today, it will be out of the system in the next few years. So then it is very critical that that dialogue happens of what is getting missed out right now from our current system. And so when we develop these AI frameworks and this ecosystem, how do we include what is not in the system already? So I think that should be the pillar of the ethical responsible AI frameworks that we look at. That is the only way we can build trust. But there's a lot of skepticism amongst people about AI and how it's going to affect their lives. So even awareness, because one of the things as a public information integrity consultant that we do is also digital AI literacy, to actually look at the opportunities and also the challenges. So it needs to be a 360-degree approach. I also feel that with AI, there is a whole move for democratizing, now we are talking about that you don't need to know coding to build something, right? I recently met a principal of a school who felt that some of the AI tools don't look at their problems as teachers. So he has gone ahead and has picked up how to wipe code and created a tool that he's testing with his teachers in his school. But now he doesn't know how to scale it up. Now, something like APAC Centre can probably help interdisciplinary people who are entering into this field also kind of scale up their product. He's testing it in his own school, but he doesn't know what to do with it beyond that particular point, So I think there's a lot of scope for, and dialogue, and also learning and sharing of learning that can happen through this APAC Centre, for sure.
Yeah, thank you so much, ma'am. I think two important points. Inclusivity is very, very important. That's the base for your trust building, and second is that is like it alludes to Varun's point also, is that is bringing that visibility towards what's really happening. So thank you so much for your contribution. Tripti, your perspectives. So Tripti Bansal is the founder, CEO of Policy Index AI, and Tripti, your 2 cents on this. Yeah.
Sure. Well, thank you everybody for seeking my inputs on this, and thank you Kamesh for inviting me here. Well, I really think when we talk about APAC and responsible AI and how we can look at building this particular center, I think it's really important that I think a lot of speakers have already spoken about building trust, so I won't really touch upon that. I think already it has been discussed. I think we kind of need to consider that India, APAC also is very different. It's not like West where you can't really differentiate between what's happening in UK or USA and other stuff. They all operate in a very, very similar way. They have the same language and same cultural identities that they have. However, when we look at India and APAC, what we're really looking at is a very diversified audience. We have people who speak different, people who have cultural which are very different. And I think that's where I think this particular center needs to play a role, where they're very cognizant from the beginning that we need to play into these diversities and not kind of make it uniform. And we need to kind of also, because we are in India and because we're very fortunate, we have a lot of languages, different education levels, financial levels, we can actually play a lot of playbooks which can be copied or can be not translated into other similar regions, and we can actually set success pathways to success in these particular regions. So I think this is where the role for the APAC Centre should come in, where they kind of talk about it, govern it, bring in a lot of frameworks, bring in a lot of case studies, how to kind of scale these kind of solutions or startups which can be very quickly replicated into these regionally diverse center countries.
Excellent point on keeping the contextuality that APAC has differences. So definitely that has to be getting. I'll come back to you, ma'am. We'll open up for the discussion as well. Definitely I'll bring you in. We have Aditi Sita here, who's a principal consultant with Dubient. Aditi, your 2 cents on this.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much, Kamesh, for giving this opportunity. And by way of introduction, I'll just say that I'm one of the co-founders at Dutian.ai, which is a consulting firm, and we work at the intersection and we help sort of companies, organizations, MSME startups with their security and privacy compliances. Now, from that point of view, I want to make just 3 practical points quickly. First point is that as a startup, what we typically see is that we find ourselves at a base of fragmented sort of frameworks. So now when I have to practically scale my business, I find it a bit problematic. So one of the most valuable roles which the APAC Centre can play is that of a policy harmonizer, because there's a lot of fragmented AI frameworks running currently. And that is why I feel, I'll just take a quick example that let's say I am a legal health tech startup from Singapore. Now I will pass my local pilots, but when I want to scale my business, let's say in India or Australia, so there are data localization mandates, there are explainability standards. So one of the roles that you can play is to standardize the whole process and let companies basically scale and expand in other jurisdictions. I think second point is, from a policy point, I've covered it all. But you also have to think that the center just not limit itself to being just a think tank, but a do tank. Now, what happens is, in practicality, that there is a lot of innovation and talent, but those doesn't get translated into the right systems. So the government and large enterprises are not evaluating these AI vendors on merit. And they find themselves in a difficult position when they have to see that whether the trust which we are talking about, there is a lack of trust. So now if from a starting point we standardize certain risk assessments, handhold with certain documentation which can help in the compliance framework, I think that's a bit of a thing that the APAC Centre could look at. And also from a diversity point of view, I think APAC has its own sort of challenges, and the solutions can be found here itself. So we find ourselves, struggling with, let's say, a disaster management or multilingual education access. Now, what we can do here is that we have those sort of platform for everyone, and I think unique framework for, let's say, smart manufacturing industry or healthcare industry, and then probably introduce them to the corporate agencies or governments which actually need that.
Yeah. Excellent points, Aditi. I think 2 important aspects is the policy harmonization, and we should definitely move towards that, but we can definitely find a common thread and work on that. And the second point is also the the entire aspect of how the solutions can be pitched to the right audience is something interesting. So we have about 1.40 minutes. So it's just running so fast. So, ma'am, I would love to, start it with you, and we can open it up for at least 1 more minute. We can take, I think.
Yeah.
And then
Thank you so much, Kamesh. So, first of all, I really want to thank. I enjoyed the conversation here. I'm Rama Shivkumar, the founder CEO for SRK Game Changers. Recently relocated from London, and I'm here to start up the innovation labs and GCCs for the mid-sized companies. Coming back to the point, I think, Mayuresh, you were talking about that we should have, more tech, in terms of deep tech there. I'm also a mentor with NASCOM and Young, Leaders Council. So I think that's very important because we don't encourage. The failure is not being looked at. Having been outside India, I've seen that a lot of, encouragement there. Failures. You'll have startup, even, kids 20, 25 years getting funding and doing this. I think that kind of a mindset is very important. And I dream of that India has its own DeepSeek. That's very important for us to look at that. That's what I just wanted to add. Thank you so much for this.
Yes. 30 seconds or 15 seconds, 15 seconds. Yeah.
Hi, everyone. I'm Vidit. I'm a senior engineering manager at Adobe right now. I'm leaving Adobe and working on a startup of my own. Just wanted to add a very small thing here. I think no one talked about accessibility, right? I think in a country like India, where technology is not very accessible, and I think a lot of countries in APAC are like that, right? One thing which APAC Centre of AI can help is making technology more accessible to the farmers, to the villages, and making sure that it reaches in the hand of each and every citizen of all the countries.
Thank you. Excuse me, sir.
My name
Time is up, so 30 minutes, 30
okay.
seconds. Yeah.
My name is Amit Mittal. I am a CEO of an aviation company and I work very closely with Gift City. I've got a company there. One of my points is that in aviation, we've got an agency called ICAO, International Civil Aviation Organization under the UN. So one of the biggest problem when we talk about cross-border thing is jurisdictional risk. How do we cover that? And because AI is a very sensitive social topic as well. Unlike aviation, which is mainly technical and commercial, here a lot of social and emotional aspects are also there. So how do we navigate on this part?
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for that submission. Thank you so much, everyone. Thanks to all the panelists. And I really wish like we had one more round of questions and had more people to like weigh in. But definitely this is the start of the conversation, and we will definitely reach out to all of you guys to like pick your brains separately. Thank you so much.